Sure, why not turn the turn? I think that's very nice. Why did you think of me like that? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Swagatam, Swagatam, welcome everyone for the class today. We're chanting Hare Krishna and be happy. Today is a very nice day for Krishna Katha. Like every day, we're doing the Srimad Bhagavatam classes on a regular basis. It's Narayana Namaskritya Naransham Narottama Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Sato Jayam Mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're offering our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana Rishi, the supermost human beings, the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and also Vyasa Dev, the author. It is said in the Shastra, Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regularly attending classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by offering services to the pure devotees, everything that is inauspicious is completely, almost completely, annihilated from the heart. And devotional service is established as an irrevocable fact. And there still might be some tinges of. We will see what today is on the. Thank you so much, Jonathan. On the topic, we have a very interesting chapter to read. We're reading from the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. Usually we wouldn't go directly into the 10th canto, but because of the mercy of the Vaishnavas and of the Damodar month, and by the blessings of the Vaishnavas, we can tell something about the 10th canto, especially the Damodar Lila, which is very, very popular, and it's very, very famous, and it's very, very sweet. And please bestow your mercy upon me so that I can say something relevant, something interesting, of course. And we will start with the invocation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Continue reading from the 10th canto, 10th chapter, verse 4. Please repeat. Anta Pravishya Gangayam Anta Pravishya Gangayam Amboja Vana Rajini Amboja Vana Rajini Shikridatur Yuvatibhir Shikridatur Yuvatibhir Gaya Iva Karenubihi Gaja Fiva Karenubihi Anta Pravishya Gangayam Ambojavana Rajini Shikridatu Yuvatibhi Gaja Fiva Karenubihi Anta pravishya Gangayam.
Anta pravishya Gangayam.
Ambojavana Rajini.
Ambojavana Rajini.
Shikridatu Yuvati Bir.
Shikridatu Yuvati Bir.
Gajav Ivakare Nubi.
Gajav Ivakare Nubi.
Please.
Anta pravishya Gangayam.
Anta pravishya Gangayam.
Ambuja Vanarajini.
Ambuja Vanarajini.
Shikridatu Yuvati Bir.
Shikridatu Yuvati Bir.
Gaja Viva Karenubi.
Gaja Ivakare Nubi.
Anta pravishya Gangayam.
Anta pravishya Gangayam.
Ambuja Vanarajini.
Ambojavana Rajini.
Shikridhatur Yutibhi.
Shikridatu Yuvati Bir.
Gaja Vivakare Nubi.
Gaja Ivakare Nubi. Ladies?
Anta vitin pravishya
Anta pravishya Gangayam. Ambojavana Rajini. Shakridatu Yushavihir. Kaja Ivakare Nabi. Need a text. Hare Krishna. Okay, we're going word to word. It's nice to learn a shloka like that. If you wanna remember a verse like that, and you think, "Wow, this is so beautiful! I want to remember this." Then it's easy to break it down and to constantly repeat. If you repeat it again and again, Anta Pravishya Gangayam, and so on, and you repeat it again, Anta Pravishya Gangayam, at some point it gets stuck in the consciousness, and the more we repeat it again and again, the better we can remember it. And as soon as we have learned to learn verses, it becomes like it's like you want to collect more and more of these sweet nectar drops of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, now we're going word to word translation. Anta, within. Pravishya, entering. Gangayam, the Ganges, known as Mandakini. Ambhoja, of lotus flowers. Vana Rajini, where there was a congested forest. Congested means dense. There's a dense forest. You cannot see the trees because of the forest, kind of forest. Shikritatu, the two of them used to enjoy. Yuvati bihi, in the company of young girls. Gajau, two elephants. Iva, just like. Karenu bihi, with female elephants. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Within the waters of the Mandakini Ganges, which were crowned with gardens of lotus flowers, the two sons of Kovera would enjoy young girls, just like two male elephants enjoying in the water with female elephants. Purport by His Divine Grace. People generally go to the Ganges. Have you been to the Ganges? Yeah? No? Yes? Have you been to the Ganges? Of course. To be purified of the effects of sinful life. People generally go to the Ganges to be purified of the effects of sinful life. They take a bath. They go into the Ganges hoping, please free me from these sinful reactions. But here is an example of two foolish persons. Who are these two foolish persons? Manigriva and Nalakuvara, the sons of the treasure of the demigods Kuvera. The two foolish persons, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, enter the Ganges to become involved in sinful life. The complete opposite. It is not that everyone becomes purified by entering the Ganges. Interesting. It is not that everyone becomes purified by entering the Ganges. Everything, spiritual and material, depend on one's mental condition. This is the purpose by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. We are hearing from this wonderful pastime, a story, the narration of Shukadev Goswami, who is a very renowned sage, and he is a wonderful son of Vyasadeva. And Shukadev Goswami is not an ordinary person. He's an avadut, he's a paramahamsa, he's a mahabhagavat, he's a very special person. And he also, like we heard yesterday, I think you told it, that Shukadev Goswami also, he walked around naked. He walked around naked because he was careless and detached from all material efforts, from all material sides of life. He was completely liberated. It was a liberated soul. He could walk freely naked, and women and children and all sorts of people would follow him. Even his father Vyasadeva would search out, where is my naked boy? That is an extraordinary example, not to be imitated. Then Shukadev Goswami is telling the story to whom? To King Parikshit. And King Parikshit, he is the emperor of the world. We think, okay, maybe in France there's a mayor or governor, maybe in Europe there's a council of government, maybe in the United Nations there's some sort of legislative, but the emperor of the world, the emperor of the whole world. This was Maharaj Parikshit. And Maharaj Parikshit, he had only 7 days to live. He was cursed. And he understood that, oh yes, I only have 7 days to live. Death is very soon. I have to prepare. So what do? I go to the river of the Ganges. And I sit with that naked boy. Because that naked boy, he is enlightened. And he might tell me something about death. And what is my duty? And what is the essence of the scriptures, and what are the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And King Parikshit was inquiring for 7 days continuously. Please tell me more. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. But please tell me more about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Shukadev Goswami was receiving the inquiry of Maharaj Parikshit with compassion, and he told him all these wonderful pastimes which he had heard from his father Vyasadeva, who is none other than Krishna as a literary incarnation who compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now we are at the story coming out of the Damodara Lila, which is very, very sweet. It's the pastimes of Gokul, of Vrindavan, of Mother Yashoda and Krishna. It is uncomparable pastimes. And it is a real pastime. It's a Nitya Lila. It's a pastime that has been always going on and ever is continuing, but it is also special on this certain occasion in Gokul. Krishna always performs special pastimes with his special devotees, like Mother Yashoda. And the gopis, of course. Mother Yashoda is part of the cowherd maidens of Raja. And in Vrindavan, there's a special mood of loving Krishna as their beloved child. Vrindavan is the highest, most topmost place of how to appreciate Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Mother Yashoda, she saw Krishna not as God, but as her beloved son. And Krishna, her beloved son, was bound to a mortar because of his mischievous activities. Krishna, he stole the butter, he ate, and he distributed it. And Mother Yashoda said, okay, this is enough. We have to bind you to the wooden grinding mortar. And this is it. You will be staying there for some time until you get, normal again, a normal child. Every mother wants her child to be kind of normal. But Krishna was extraordinary, and Mother Yashoda understood, I love my extraordinary boy, and I love him so much that I just want to protect him from himself, not that he gets agitated by the monkeys, or the monkeys next they eat the butter and then they eat Krishna. No. So we better keep him safe. But what did Krishna do? He bound on the mortar, gave a wonderful exhibition of his strength. First, he is powerless by being bound to the mortar completely, and then he gives an exhibition of his strength by pulling the mortar just like it's nothing, just like he is pulling a plow, or he's pulling a cart, or you can imagine a child is pulling something like a Rath Yatra. So he's pulling the mortar, and he's pulling it between these two trees. And now we understand that these two trees in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, they are not any ordinary person. They are a special person also, which we call Manigriva and Nalakuvar. Manigriva, Nalakuvar, they are the demigods. And how did they get into this situation? To be born as a tree? This is really like an uncomfortable condition. I mean, if we think of it, you'll be standing there for how many years? Maybe like 100 or 200 years in the same place, and you'll be naked, exposed to wind and weather. This is quite uncomfortable. Who wants to be born as a tree? Maybe in Vrindavan, okay, but not really. It happened to be a curse by Narada Muni because of their frivolous behavior, which is explained here as compared to male elephants enjoying and she-elephants, being attracted to the male elephants. Now, why elephants? If you look it up in some of the reference of the Shastras, elephants are always compared to something very powerful. It's a mighty, full animals. Sometimes in Mayapur, you go on a walk and you will meet an elephant, and they are quite big and they're quite enormous. They have a ton of body weight and they are quite powerful. So just explaining the exaggerated situation, the exuberant sense gratification that they were experiencing by being intoxicated with wine and by also being intoxicated with the she-elephants. All these intoxicants, even sex can be, especially sex, can be bewildering to the conscience. The conscience is the kind of clear thinking mechanism that is there in every human being. And when the male is agitated by the female, his conscience and intelligence and logical thinking goes down the drain. I'm sorry, this is very bad for all in the male body can understand that it is quite bewildering when they see an attractive woman and when they're intoxicated. This is described in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam as a hellish condition. There is a hell, Atala, and in this hellish condition, the women, they are giving the ones that are there, the intoxicant, not just any intoxicant, but specific intoxicants, to make them deluded in their consciousness and to enjoy sex life with them. This is in the hellish planet called Atala. This is a degraded life. This is a downfallen life, which Manigriva and Nalakuver, they are enjoying this downtrodden behavior in a special garden, namely the garden of Shiva at Kailash. Now, it's all okay. Shiva, he's like, just let him do, let him do whatever. Kuvera, like he's a good devotee of Manigriva and Nalakuvar. Let him do, that's all right. But then, a surprise, Narada Muni comes along. Oh, Narada Muni, and he is singing his songs and he's praising the Lord. And because he is a Muni, he is the Muni of all the demigods. He is the very, very close consort of Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha on the Rhine. And he also has this responsibility as a sage to kind of speed up some pastimes, and he wants to see real pleasure pastimes. So he goes there to Shiva's abode, to Kailash, and Narada Muni, he sees the behavior of Nalakuvar Manigriva, and he cannot other than to chastise them and to beeye them and to see them in that naked condition, demanding some sort of respect, or even kind of an acknowledgement. Oh, there's Narada Muni, but what did they do? They just remained intoxicated. They had no idea. Nalakuvera Manigriva, their conscience, totally bewildered by sex desire, were unable to witness who just came, that Narada Muni was present. And that was their downfall. So what happens comparatively, let's say, we are maybe somewhere in the streets, or maybe we might be, even here in the temple, and there might be an exalted Vaishnava, like Srila Prabhupada would come personally. Srila Prabhupada would come personally to the temple here, and we would not offer our respectful obeisances because we are just eating some burfis, or we are hunting some sweet rice, or we are going to do something else, whatever it is. And Srila Prabhupada, he would wonder, right, what is this behavior? So this is a kind of comparative analogy. How can we understand this behavior, and what do we call this behavior? On a mundane plane. They get intoxicated, they enjoy the women, they enjoy the wine, they enjoy the wealth of their father. What do we call this in our understanding? What is this behavior called? If somebody would act like that, you go to the temple, and somebody would be intoxicated in the temple, and he would throw around gold coins and prashadam, and he would act in such a nonsensical way.
We will accept gold coins.
That's fine. Yeah, okay. But if that person would say, these are my gold coins from my father, and here, these are all, we could say that this is very nice. Please give us more some gold coins.
Yeah,
like that.
we will tolerate him.
We will tolerate him. Yeah, that is something. If it's for Krishna, because if that would happen in the temple, we would say that yes, if somebody acts in a very exaggerated way, we could maybe call it proud, or we could call it arrogant, or we could call it so many ways, or mad, or we could call it illusion, or whatever we want to call it. We would say, okay, if he's acting for Krishna, and if he is giving all his possessions in this intoxicated state to Krishna, that's all right. That is very nice. Now, this behavior is not rare. It is also in comparative shastras, it's also explained that this behavior of pride is naturally there. Even Srila Prabhupada, it was mentioned by Srila Kirti Prabhu, who always had much time spent with Srila Prabhupada. Even Srila Prabhupada was proud. But it was transcendental pride. Prabhupada would say that I love this cowherd boy, and I am very proud to be his servant. Prabhupada would talk like this to give an example of spiritual pride, of something that is exaggerated, but it is for Krishna, and that is very nice. So, in this fortunate situation, to be connected to Krishna and to be in a temple like that is very nice. But otherwise, we have to be very careful with our pride, because it is a kind of a double-edged sword, you could say. Like if we get proud for Krishna, if someone says dressing the deities, oh, today I dressed in the most nice way, in the most wonderful way, and look at Radha Parisisvara, how nicely they are dressed. And there's all respects to the devotees. And they can be so much proud of their work, because this service is not an easy service, as Chaitanya and devotees they might esteem. This is something that we can be proud of, for sure. But then in another sense, we have to be very careful who we share this pride with also. If we share it in an open manner, then it might be, it might be attracting some kind of misconception about this behavior. This means that we have to find a kind of a counterpart to this pride. And the counterpart of this pride is of course, what's the counterpart of pride? Humility, yeah. Humility or pridelessness. Pridelessness, but balancing both, that is kind of the juggle act that we have to do. Yes, internally we might be very proud of our services, of our behavior in our sadhana, in our chanting so many rounds, in our kirtan. We might be so much proud of our book distribution, of our scores, of our deity worship. We might be so much proud of so many unlimited things in devotional service. And that is okay. That is totally okay. But internally, we have to keep it. And we shouldn't boast it. We shouldn't exaggerate it in an external way. But externally, we should always act humbly. We should always act in a prideless manner. It said a Vaishnava is prideless. And he understands to offer all respects to others. According to the mantra, Trinad apisu nichena, as humble as a tree. Now, Nalakuvera Manigriva, they were humbled. They were indeed humbled before the great sage Narada Muni, who gave them permission, to receive a higher blessing. Because if a pure devotee, let's say Doinitai is cursing me for not singing Guru Puja in order, then what happens when a devotee curses us, it is even a higher blessing. It is even a higher blessing. If Narada Muni curses one, then that is even a blessing in disguise. That means the Nalakovera Manigriva, they received something very special, which they had no idea of what would happen, but because they were repentant and they were humble. And that is the attitude of Vaishnavas. We should always be very, very much humble. It's explained in Bhakti Vinoda Shikshamrita that this behavior of Manigriva and Nalakovara, that is very much the example of pride, born out of intoxication. So we have to be very careful with any sorts of intoxication. First off and foremost, what is the greatest danger of intoxication? What would be the first intoxicant that everyone likes to enjoy? Any idea, Jagannath? What do you think? What is the first and foremost intoxicant that everyone likes?
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
Oh, alcohol. Yeah, what does the alcohol do? I mean, the alcohol maybe comes into play, yes. It might be something that is common. You see how many people are taking intoxicant like that, and how many people also die of that. There are statistics that are very crucial, but it might be very bad also, and it might be also here in that example. Wine, for example, it's said here in the previous verse and the coming verses that there was wine in play. That Manigriva and Nalakuvara, they had this intoxicant, the alcohol. Which, what is alcohol? I mean, it is basically a kind of a chemical that makes the brain clueless of thinking. If you take too much of it, it is causing kind of a breakdown. If you take a sparse amount of it, it can act as a medicine. So we have to kind of see that the doses makes the gift. But Prabhupada said clearly that no intoxicants, no meat, fish, and eggs, but no alcohol as well. No alcohol, no cannabis, no chocolate. Yeah, all these intoxicants, they are there. Maybe even a greater intoxicant than alcohol is chocolate. Who doesn't like a big bar of Milka chocolate? The Swiss chocolate.
Don't give idea.
Oh. But wine, chocolate, I think that is relatively harmless compared to the greatest intoxicant. Maybe we can research a little further. What might be the greatest intoxicant? What do the ladies think? What is the greatest intoxicant? Money. Richness, wealth. Beauty, okay, yes.
False ego.
False ego, that comes with it also. Well, but where does the wealth come from? Where does the money come from? That's an easy question to kind of...
Power,
but where does the power come from?
from the mercy.
From the mercy.
From
Okay. I fully accept that. I fully accept that as a fact, that mercy given by whom? Who's giving the mercy?
Krishna.
Yeah, the Vaishnavas. And the Vaishnavas are giving mercy, and especially by the mercy we are empowered to do great tasks, Herculean tasks like distributing books on the streets. By what mercy can we share knowledge that is inaccessible to so many ages and yugas, but that we can share freely on the streets? That is great mercy. And of course, the danger might be the ahankara. We might be thinking, oh, this wealth, this is my wealth. This is my beauty. This is my position and fame. But this is illusion. This is the greatest illusion that we face in spiritual life, identifying with that body, with that fame, with that riches, with that wealth, overstepping the actually mercy factor. Why are we overstepping the mercy factor? Because we have been blinded by our own endeavors, by our own individuality, thinking that I am the doer and I am the proprietor. What does Krishna say to that? There's a famous verse in Bhagavad Gita. What's that verse again? It starts with a B. Bhakta. Yes. Yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram shuddham nyatva shanti rachati. Krishna says that I'm the proprietor of everything. Wealth, fame, possession, power, beauty, education, all of this comes from me. So what do you think? What do you possess, really? What do we possess? So that is our intrinsic meditation, that I'm actually the possessor of nothing. Nothing I own, nothing, everything is Krishna's. I am just no lower than the dust on the streets, nothing is mine. And that is a constant meditation. This is actually where spiritual life starts. Spiritual life starts with this meditation that everything is Krishna's. My position, my fame, my beauty is Krishna's. Aham mameti. And I would say that even greater than wealth, even greater than the intoxicants like alcohol and chocolate and any other intoxicant that you can imagine, even more relevant than meat eating and then all the other nonsense activities like gambling. What is the greatest intoxicant that we all are somehow or other connected to or even pleased by? That is simply the pleasure to be pleased. And we might call it sex desire. We might call it the desire to enjoy. We might call it, in the scriptures it's called a certain mellow rasa. But we must understand that this certain mellow, the Adi rasa, is actually Krishna. He is the one who's relishing all of this. He is relishing the original position, the original conjugal relations, the original friendships. Krishna says, Shurit Sarva Bhutanam, I'm the friend of everyone. The friend of everyone. He is the original friend. He is the original bestower of well wishes and of mercy. So that intoxicant, and this might be leading us to celibacy, to living a celibate life, to bring back the conscience, to bring back a clear consciousness. Being free of illicit sex means that we have the power, the most wonderful wealth, the sadhana of this mellow, of this taste of Krishna consciousness, that it is with us by being in a renounced state. And that is irrespective of man or women or gender or age or who we think we are. Being free of sex desire is the greatest challenge in spiritual life. And it is also the greatest enemy. Because if we fall trap into that sex desire, the perverted reflection of the spiritual world will get us down to Atala Loka, to the hellish planets, and there we will be basically ripped apart like a cloud in the wind. That is the fear in our spiritual life. But in spiritual life, we can train this renunciation, irrespective of gender, of age, by the mercy of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is bestowing his mercy. He's empowering us to stay in a conscious awareness of our, of our relationships, forming relationships that are more tangible, more real. And the first thing we learn in the Brahmachari ashram is that every female is a mother. Simple as that. It's not your girlfriend. It might not be even your sister, because that might be also too close for some. Every lady, every female-bodied soul is a mother, however she appears. She might be the 5-year-old young girl in the kindergarten that comes to the temple regularly and might be chanting Hare Krishna, and she might be ecstatic in a kirtan, you never know, but she's a Mataji. That is simple. That is what we learn, to be renounced. And of course the ladies on their part, they have to learn to be kind of chaste. That is the highest quality of a lady, is to be chaste, to be covered, and to be not glancing so much at the boys when they're doing kirtan like that, because it might be invoking feelings in the boys that are like butter, and the women are like fire. This comparison is given. When the ladies, when they give over the fire to the boys, then the butter melts, and the buttery heart of the brahmacharis, it will be gone, and they have to run out to get a shower, or like a cold wash or something like that. So celibate life can also be funny. It is something that we live through to actually get the pure taste, to get the real taste, to get the real thing that is the relationship with Krishna. And that is what we have to face in our lives. That there is always this challenge of intoxication. We go out into Paris, and Paris is like the Mecca of sense gratification. I mean, of course, there are many bad cities in the world where you get pictures of half-naked ladies and where you get drug dealers on every corner, but Paris is really such a place. You wouldn't think that it is easy for anyone to be kind of abstinent or controlled in their sense behavior, because in the extremes it might be too much control, too much renunciation, we are hiding in ourselves in the cave, and there's too much, like we see here in the example of Manigriva. But it should be in a balance. It should be in a balance between being proud and prideless, between being controlled and being active like that. What is nice is that Krishna, he controls all of that. Krishna, he is Darpa, Da. He is the giver of pride. Krishna is bestowing the pride on us. That is one of the Sahasranams of Vishnu. He's Darpa Da. He's giving pride. So we can be proud to be in a relationship with Krishna. We can be proud to be in a temple with Krishna. We can be proud to be in the association of the Vaishnavas. But at the same time, Krishna is Dapa Ha. Means that he is the destroyer of pride. That he is taking the pride away from us, which is for our best. For example, of course, there's a famous example and many famous examples. But before I get into that example, I better read something about pride from Nectar of Devotion, which is very, very nice to get a sense of what is this? What does this even mean? And this might also be something interesting, what Srila Prabhupada says about pride. Pride stemming from intoxication with wealth, which breeds violence, illicit sex, and addiction to wine, and finally loose speaking and shameless brutality to other living beings, is represented by the Yamuna Arjuna trees. Krishna being merciful, and I think that's the key point for today's lecture, that Krishna is very merciful. Krishna is very merciful to help us in our endeavor, in our pride, and in this cleansing process. Krishna being merciful removes the sin in breaking the Yamuna Arjuna trees. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking. Expressions, now Nectar of Devotion, expressions of ecstatic love and pride may be the result of excessive wealth, exquisite beauty, a first-class residence, or the attainment of one's ideal goal. One is also considered proud when he does not care about the neglect of others. Bilva Mankala Thakura said, "My dear Krishna, you are leaving me, forcibly getting out of my clutches. But I shall be impressed by your strength only when you can go forcibly from the core of my heart." This is an instance of feeling pride in ecstatic love for Krishna. This is Nectar of Devotion, and there is also lots and lots of Srila Prabhupada. I read one verse, one quote of pride. The first qualification is that one should not be deluded by pride, because the conditioned soul is puffed up, thinking himself the Lord of material nature. It is very difficult for him to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know by the cultivation of real knowledge that he is not Lord of material nature. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord. When one is free from delusion caused by pride, he can begin the process of surrender. For one who is always expecting some honor in this material world, it is not possible to surrender to the Supreme Person. That is false pride. The scientists, the modern scientists, they are taking false pride that there's no need of God. And now I wanted to tell you one small story that is really, Prabhupada sometimes told it, and it's a nice story. It's a very nice and simple story to understand this fact. What does it mean, pride, in a story? There was a boatman, and he had a boat. A boatman had a boat, and he was taking people on that boat to cross over a river. And that river, it was, of course, it was not a small river. It was not the Seine, or maybe it was the Seine, but of course, there was a boatman waiting for his next customers. And of course, a boatman, he's sitting in the boat, and the waves are coming a little bit. It was a nice day. It was a very beautiful day. And there came 3 students, or well, 6. I think it was maybe 2 or 3. There came students of a scientific branch. They were neuroscience students, AI students. They were in the advanced technology field, and they were very, very much eager to go back home, but they had to take the ferry over the river. Now they got into the ferry boat. The boatman greeted them, "Welcome, please come into this boat, Swagatam, so Swagatam, have a seat, please let me offer Padya and Achman," and so on. Of course, the boatman was very exalted Vaishnav, and he greeted the students, the scientific students, and he told them kind of the precautions on the boat. You have to sit and you have to be quiet most of the time, but you can sing. That's okay. But after some time, they let loose the boat, and he started rowing. And then what happened was that the students, they started to ask questions to the boatman, being a little, you could say, of that quality, which we find also here with Manigriva and Nalakuvara. They were asking, "And, dear boatman, have you studied botany? Do you know the trees? And, dear boatman, do you know anything about biology? About the atmosphere, the winds and the waves? About the animals?" And the boatman, he was just rowing, and he was saying, "I'm very sorry. I'm just a simple boatman. Please, excuse me, I have not studied these topics." And the students, they would say, "What? You have not studied these topics? Then 50% of your life is wasted." Then another student came and he said, "And have you studied psychology? Have you studied the mind? Have you studied the behavior of thoughts, the consciousness that emanates everywhere from all living beings?" And the boatman would say, "Oh, I'm very sorry. I'm just a simple boatman. I'm just doing my service here on this boat. I have not studied these subject matters." And the students would look at him and they would say, "Not just 50% of your life is finished, but 75% of your life is useless if you have not studied these subject matters. How can you?" And then the boatman, he was inquiring, "And did you learn how to swim?" There was a big cloud, a big black cloud coming along over the river, and there seemed to be a storm coming up. And the storm came, and gasping winds were bringing the boat to go back and forth, and the rudder and the waves were splashing into the boat, and the students, they were just shaking their head. They were saying, "No, we have never learned how to swim." And the boatman just said, "Oh, then 100% of your life is wasted." we're going to drown. So the boatman, he gave an example when the boat drowns, all the speculative knowledge is useless if we're not engaged in devotional service. And the essence of all devotional service is to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada ki. Now it is a custom, as every Srimad Bhagavatam class, we have a couple of minutes for churning the nectar. And maybe you have something on your mind that you like to share, or maybe you have a thought that came up spontaneously, maybe a question or a comment.
I share a question.
I have.
Yeah, okay. Who goes first? Ladies first?
Yes, Prabhuji, you were talking about like being proud and that we try to become humble, but externally we try to become humble even if we have that pride inside. Yeah, we are proud of our service, of whatever it is, book distribution or the deity dressing or puja, whatever it is. But externally we, even if we are proud inside, externally we so humble. But the whole philosophy, how I understand it, it's not just external, but how your intentions internally are. Like not just showing, oh, I'm so humble like this, oh Prabhuji, I'm so humble, what can I do? But the mood inside, to develop that. Actually, without whatever I have, it's the mercy of the Lord and Vaishnavas and my spiritual master who is allowing me to do this service. And the Vaishnavas are appreciating it. It's their greatness. They are appreciating my service. Like what I have to be proud of, the internal mood of a Vaishnava, like what our Acharya is teaching us. We are confident, like my Gurudev says, we are confident enough to know that we got the mercy, but we are humble enough that without such mercy, we are nothing. But my confusion is that, yeah, internally you can be proud, but so externally humble. So maybe you can elaborate on this point, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, the definite mood should be that we should be always humble in any circumstance, internally and externally. We should be always humble as Vaishnavas are humble. Vaishnava means that we are humbled by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. And only by the mercy of the Vaishnavas we are actually able to act in devotional service. The internal mood, for example, in deity worship, in any service that we perform, but giving the example of deity worship, before we offer an article, before we offer something to the Lord, we pray to the spiritual master, please, may I offer this article on your behalf, and by your mercy, Krishna may accept it. That is the prayer that we invoke to bring out that internal mood. Because the internal mood, that is something that everyone, of course, is a unique living being, and we cannot look inside of somebody else. So that means that mood to be cultivated, that everyone has to work on their own internal conception of who we are as a soul. But by studying the Shastra, we can understand that we are eternally a servant of Krishna by the nature of the soul. That is the nature to be humble. It's the nature to serve. And that means that all other superfluous conceptions in external or internal circumstances, they may be superfluous. And that is also the distinguishing factor. How can we see that something is superfluous to the soul? We have to learn to see by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, by the mercy of the Shastras. Everything that is outside of the Shastra is basically superfluous. This is called Shastra Shaksus, that we learn to see by the eyes, by the glasses of the scriptures. And everything that is not in the Shastra, that might be giving rise to all those Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsaya, all these 6 enemies, which are then, of course, in our devotional life, in our daily life, in our service, we always have to be very, very careful of how we act. By the matter of our internal mood, we can retrospect, and we have to do that more often. Vaishnavas do that. They go into meditation and they sit to chant, to introspect. In the morning especially, when we sit in the morning to chant, we introspect, what is the mood? Who am I, really? and by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, how may I serve? That is especially conducive to be practiced in the morning as our sadhana, as our meditation, to introspect in the morning, to have this internal kind of tuning in. We're tuning ourselves into that vibration of humility. In the very early hours when everyone is humbly sleeping, then the Vaishnava is humbly active. And that is the great art, to be humble, but still to be fully active, to be fully conscious, and still at the same time to remain equipoised in whatever comes, even if there's great disturbance. But that's another big topic. And it is practical, meaning that, yes, internal mood is very important, and we should set it in the very morning, in the very early hours. We should introspect. What is my mood at that moment? Who am I as a soul, as a servant? And by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, we may be successful. Externally, pride and humility, they might be, they might be in a fight. Sometimes we're wondering, is this person really humble? Is this person really proud? He might be an expert Mridanga player. You see the young boys, they're expert Mridanga players. And nowhere near anyone could think of how possible they play like this. But then we might also assume that someone else is like this or like that. But that is not the way. The first key point in our spiritual life is that we have to introspect, who am I even to see others as that or this? Yeah. So we always have to be very careful also in seeing others as such and such. So that is to be trained. And I think controlling the senses, controlling the mind, and chanting Hare Krishna, especially following the four regulative principles, foremost illicit sex, that is training us to withdraw our thoughts. It's called pratyahara. Pratyahara means that we're withdrawing our thoughts to go back to our sense of self, to introspect. And that is a training. Everyone can learn that. That is a matter of training, how we trained to do that. Meditation is a practice. Everyone can practice it. And by internal practice, we might be able to set the right foundation, the right mood, and to build our devotional service on that. But externally, there should be only service. Externally should be only service, and that's it. Yeah, Jagannath, you had a question? Does it answer?
No, it was to help her to get. She had a question.
Okay.
Just like how my other question is, how do you understand the humility and how it manifested in our daily activities and whatever you do outside? Like you said, you saw it externally, the motive, and how do you understand that it's manifested outside in our daily activities?
Yeah, I think of a good example for humility. I think everyone is humble by nature. I think all of us are certainly humble by nature. Means that it's a kind of intrinsic quality of the soul. How it expresses itself in devotional service, that might be individual. Like everyone has their own unique humbleness. Someone might be worshipping the deities in a humble mood. Somebody might be cleaning the temple room in a humble mood. Somebody might be cooking the book in a humble mood. Somebody, what is individual to that person, that humility might express in a certain specific way, which it's to every individual, is unique. Some people might be humbly sleeping, and they might be dreaming about humble things. Do we know? So it's about introspecting ourselves of how am I to act in this world as a servant of Krishna. And that is also something that can be trained by the practice of bhakti, by the practice of sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, following the regulative principles. We slowly become acquainted with the mindset of a sadhaka, which means that only to serve, that is sadhana. And everything else, that may be considered lack of humility, you could call it like that. But that is speculation. There are definitions of in the Shastras. What is humility? Prabhupada, what would you say in Bhagavad Gita? What is the definition of humility? You remember the definition of humility?
Different definitions.
There's one specific in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, verse 8. There's one specific definition of humility, and if we don't know it, we look it up.
It's like something like approaching boldly is also the humility, something like that.
Yeah, even an enemy, isn't that so?
Sorry?
Even somebody that is antagonistic. Huh? Yeah. We should be, we will find it out. We find it out what kind of Prabhupada's take on humility is.
But yeah, identified as a servant of the spiritual master.
Yeah, that is one definition for sure.
I think this is
To identify as a servant of the spiritual master, and that is what we learn also from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Jivera Swarupaha Krishnera Nityadas. That we are eternal servants of Krishna, and the representative of Krishna as the spiritual master, that we are all servants of the spiritual master in that regard. These are called the items of knowledge in the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12. It's called the items of knowledge is how to cultivate knowledge. And the first is avanitvam, and the second is adambitvam, humility and pridelessness. And Prabhupada explains what does humility and pridelessness means. There are 24 elements that lead to knowledge. Everything else is called ignorance. Items of falsehood. Humility. Humility means one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others, but from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following the religious principles, and so on and so forth. And that is leading us to pridelessness. Do not be anxious to be honored by others. Means that whatever comes, if it's honor or dishonor, if your boss is saying, you get an expansion of your income. Hey, you get promoted. Haribol. You get to be the treasurer of Kuvera's treasure. And the humble person, for him it's equal. If he gets the highest position of the demigods, or if he gets the lowest position of the low, for him it's all the same. That is explained here in Bhagavad Gita. That is a matter of practice to realize, of course, but we shouldn't be saying that everything is equal, everything is one like that. We shouldn't be indefinite. No, there's a distinction also. If the Vaishnavas, they give you praise, that is to be preferred. If the materialists give you praise, well, that is something different. It is a deep topic. It's an ocean. It's an ocean of qualities, and it starts with humility. If we would meditate on this topic, we can meditate eternally. And I think we keep it as a prayer, that we always serve humbly, that we may chant in a humble mood. Tanata pisu nichena, Taro pisu hishnuna, Amani amadina, Kirtaniya sadari. And we pray like that. And then it might cultivate, and even before the deities. At the end of the class, before we go to breakfast, we might approach the deities. Please, let us be humble. Let us be humble, and let us be of little pride. And if we have little pride, then only for Krishna. Okay? Hare Krishna. Granta Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yasomati Nandana. Prabhu ki.
Do you have any questions? You just came in like that?
No.
No? Everything